Welcome everybody to another episode of Indoor Voices. I'm here speaking with members of Third Coast Percussion. This is Sean Connors and David Skidmore with me. Welcome, and I'm so pleased to have you. How are you doing?
Doing really well, thank you. Yeah.
We're really excited about the concert that you're going to be giving on Sunday. This is for everybody watching now. It's on the 25th Sunday in Nichols Concert Hall at 3 p.m. This will be a live streamed event. And I'm really excited to see all the percussion equipment coming in on Saturday night, so I know exactly what's going on. This is an impressive program. And I really wanted to congratulate you. Of course, you're known for your diversity in programming and for commissioning new works, but talk a little bit about that and the importance of it to Third Coast.
Sure, well, maybe I'll get started. As a percussion ensemble, commissioning and creating new music is sort of in our DNA. As a type of ensemble that is in the classical music tradition, our repertoire is relatively young. The oldest music for percussion ensemble is from about the 1920s. Fortunately, the four of us are also very passionate about creating new music and working with composers. So we've always created a ton of new music. We've commissioned and premiered almost 100 new works in the 16 years that we've been doing this. And when you're creating new work, we believe it's important to create work that is relevant, and we get excited when we're working with creative voices that make music that we love to listen to, really whether or not their primary output fits squarely in our genre or not. We like to find, sometimes we refer to it as classically adjacent composers. So for instance, a composer who at first blush you might say, oh, that's a pop artist, or that's an electronic music artist, or something like that. But when you dig just a little bit deeper, you see that their influences include classical composers, that their background includes classical studies, or just that their music functions in ways that classical music and concert music does. There's intricacy, there's like tons of variety and nuance and attention to detail and all these things. So yeah, that's led us to a number of composers whose work we're so thrilled about it. And the four composers that we're representing on Sunday at Nichols Hall are certainly no exception.
And when you seek out, does it come from you looking for the composer whose work you're interested in commissioning, or do you find sometimes people are like, wow, look at this hot ensemble, I really want to write something? How often does that happen, that you kind of find yourselves in the middle?
There's a combination, I think. It's fluid, and it sort of depends on the project, but this program that we're going to be presenting on Sunday actually represents kind of a wide range of things. There's some composers who didn't know us that we approached. There's a composer who had an idea for a project and brought it to us, and we were smitten with it. And then there's a piece that we're performing that existed in the world before either the composer or us knew about each other. and we found out about it, and we loved it. So there's many different ways that we go about it.
And I love that. I think looking at this, and we'll get more into it program piece by program piece, but that you take on a piece of music maybe that's already been, the conception is already there from the composer, and then I was amazed, was it Jaylyn that came to visit you? And that you explored sounds together, and I can't imagine the inspiration on both sides must be just such an impressive thing. So you're never going to run out of sounds that you're going to look for.
It's not a problem that we have, no. I mean, every object in the universe that makes a sound, if you like the sound, then it's a percussion instrument. People think about striking objects as being percussion, friction as being percussion, but we also play instruments that we blow into, like a wind player. We buzz our lips like a brass player. So it's our interpretation of percussion we sort of jokingly say is anything that a composer asks us to play and we say yes becomes a percussion instrument.
We can relate to that. I'm happy to say, very proud of the Music Institute that we presented at George Crumb Festival last year, and some of these, techniques and amazing ways to think about not just sounds of a particular instrument, but how they can be combined and the whole effect of that. So you must have a lot of fun in the studio. Well, let's take a look. So on your program order, you're playing one movement, The Hero. Is it from a 12 movement piece by Clarice Assad?
Actually, it's that piece is by Clarice, and it's from our latest album called Archetypes, which is a project that Clarice and her father, Sergio, who is a world-renowned classical guitarist, we were lucky enough that they approached us with an idea to create music based on the classic Jungian archetypes. So characters like the hero, or the innocent, or the jester, or the sage, kind of personality tropes that are all throughout history and literature and different cultural references. And we got very excited by it. And we actually, all 6 of us, composed different pieces for it. So The Hero is one that Clarice composed originally for the 6 of us. And then Rob from Third Coast arranged this version for just Third Coast. Mm-hmm. So it's Clarice's pieces. But the larger project, Archetypes, is something that we're really, really excited about and really passionate about, because we all got
each of you got to choose an archetype, am I right?
That's
so
correct.
I'm interested to hear what your choices were individually and why.
Well, I chose the lover because I had a really specific idea. I looked at all 12 and sort of said, I just had a musical idea that I thought would be interesting with that one, and I was trying to sort of a little bit subvert expectations, I think. Because when you hear the lover, I don't know, the very first thing I think of is like some suave person, who's
this is a family-friendly concert.
I know. Totally. So I, thinking about the families out there, I was like, let's not make this too, risque. No, but actually what I thought is like, just looking at that word, the lover, someone who loves somebody. I thought about just what it actually means to love someone rather than just be infatuated with them. Because I think infatuation is captured all the time in literature and mythology. But love is spending your life. Yeah. Love is spending your life with someone, which means like disagreeing and getting past that. And eventually realizing that you're 2 different people and that you work, that you'll never be 100% in lockstep, but that when it matters, things align. So
it must have given you a really wonderful arc in looking at how that progression would go.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the one I picked. It was a lot of fun. It ends up being a really hard piece because two of us, there's only 4 people playing in my piece, and 2 people are playing at one speed and the other 2 are playing at another speed. So the chord changes all happen at the same time, but the melodies are just slightly offset from one another, and so it's a tricky.
Really cool. Yeah.
If we're doing our job correctly in Dave's piece, we'll look like ducks, like floating on the water, completely serene, but in our heads underneath the water, we're paddling like crazy and counting. And it's a really beautiful piece.
Wow.
It's awesome.
And what about you, Sean? What was your choice?
I chose The Creator, and the way into that inspired me was using very simple source material. So I thought of like, how things are created in nature. It's like very simple things that are combined in complex ways and then they expand. So instead of relying on a world-renowned virtuosic classical guitarist, I gave Sergio like a very, very simple singable single note melody, and then asked him to like play with a chopstick on his guitar a little bit.
Nice.
And instead of giving us all tons of notes, I gave the percussionist very simple, very humble instruments. So like education instruments. So desk bells, which look like the reception bell on a hotel desk that you hit,
Yes.
and tone chimes, which are essentially education versions of what you would play in a handbell choir, little
Yes.
silver bells, and that sort of thing. And then Clarice can do just anything. She can play piano, she can play guitar, she can sing. And I ask her to do a little bit of everything, but very simply. So she sings just pure tones, no text, plays a little bit of percussion, plays a little bit of piano.
Was there a Brazilian undertone to any of this? And
Not
your programs
intentionally.
are so globally representative. I'm curious if when you work with a composer,
Some of the pieces I think we'll hear it in The Hero. You'll hear a little bit of, I would say maybe like Latin jazz influence, but yeah, Clarice at least has talked to me about how her Brazilianness is impossible to,
define
and or remove or do anything else. So it seeps in and cool, unexpected ways. Some people who have listened to the album have been like, "This is the first time I've heard Third Coast Percussion do Latin jazz," and we weren't even thinking of it that way. But
you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I was wondering, if there was any subconscious element to the collaboration that would happen. Well,
I think no matter who we're working with, the amazing thing for us is that they're bringing who they are to the project. Of course, we're bringing who we are. So like for our program at Nichols Hall, we've got Devante Hines, who is probably best known as a pop artist, but also writes film scores and TV scores, does amazing free improvisations, has played the works of Julius Eastman and played on stage with Philip Glass, and all of these different influences. Jalen's electronic artist, Clarice is a Brazilian person whose practice involves both improvisation and classical music. So anyway, and it goes on from there, but that becomes incredible for us because it's all us on stage. So there's a unity to it in that the four of us are playing it, but you're hearing all of these different musical influences.
Well, they just really love the flexibility that you bring to the music. All of the elements that are just probably already there, but you're bringing things to life. And the more that happens, I think, in an interchange, that's chamber music, whether it's between a composer and a group or members of an ensemble. So talk a little bit about the Devante Hines piece. Perfectly Voiceless was, if I read correctly, was a musical interlude to a much bigger performance piece.
Yeah, it was a part of a big collaboration that we did with Hubbard Street Dance Chicago a couple of years ago. And that project was all new choreography and all new music, and all of the music was composed by Devante. And he wrote us almost maybe more than an hour of music, which became our album, which is called Fields. And Perfectly Voiceless, as you say, was the sort of musical interlude. So it was the only piece that wasn't written with movement in mind. But it became quickly like a staple of our concerts. We've played that piece on 4 continents. And it's a lot of fun.
So when you perform things on different continents and some, a new fresh work that people haven't seen, do you find different reactions in different cultural environments to a particular work?
With that, yes. And I think with that particular piece, we played it, and specifically percussionists around the world were like, "Ooh, I want to play this," and we're very interested in how did you choose the instruments that you're going to play, and wanted to immediately start talking about the collaborative process with Devante, which was awesome and super fun, and was a little different for us because Devante gave us the freedom to orchestrate his composition, so have a very strong voice in choosing which instruments to play things on, because his approach was, well, you guys are the percussion experts, so I'll compose this, but I really do want you to lead the instrument choosing portion of it. So from a percussionist viewpoint, it's it's very fun to perform
Yeah.
because we got a lot of input in it. And I think other percussionists have recognized that from a performative standpoint in different environments. You know, students in Colombia or percussionists in Lithuania or wherever
Sure. Yeah.
have been like, "Ooh, can we do this?" And the great answer is yes. So it's been performed by a lot of other groups at this point, which is very exciting for us.
And it's something we haven't quite touched on yet, but we're just a year out from the beginning of this whole lockdown and pandemic. And I do want to ask how you've been managing that. I think it looks pretty successfully, but have you found that your audience, like you're saying, other percussionists, people have really reached to online performances, new discoveries and things to keep inspiration, to keep working? How have you managed that this past year?
Yeah, we were in many ways, in a very fortunate position when the lockdown started. All 7 of us, that includes the 4 ensemble members and our 3 staff members, are full-time. And we're all full-time and salaried. So it meant that we weren't part of the gig economy in that way. I mean, the canceling of gigs for us was a big deal, of course, like it was for everyone. But it didn't become a thing where all of a sudden, one day to the next, we weren't making any money. And so because everyone was still employed, it charged us with being productive and continuing our mission and making our music and reaching people. Another thing that made us really fortunate was that we had invested in some video and audio equipment. And we very, very quickly taught ourselves how to live stream and to perform and reach our audiences that way.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yes, I know. It's amazing to talk to institutions, other ensembles, and just share stories about it. So what an amazing and terrifying time. I was describing to someone the other day, we gave our last live in-person pre-COVID concert on Friday, March 13th, which happened to be scheduled in Schaumburg. Fortunately, we had other friends who were stranded halfway around the world away from their families and stuff, struggling to get home. But we happened to be near home, gave that concert, and exactly 1 week later, Friday, March 20th, we gave our first public live stream concert. And that week was one of the longest, most traumatic weeks that I've experienced yet, and I described it to someone as, music is our career, but it's also our identity. My email is Skidmore Percussion. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's very much who I am and who all of us are in the ensemble. So I had a really emotional response when we gave that first live stream, because of course it's not the same and we miss live audiences, but to have been able to continue to reach audiences in the ways that are possible right now has been, of course, good for our organization and our bottom line, but also just so important for us on a sort of emotional, spiritual
It's a
level.
huge pivot, I think, to be able to, and as I said, I'm learning that firsthand with this series live at Nichols Concert Hall that you're part of. It's the first time we've really rolled out this new live streaming equipment, and say hi to your cameraman. So, and I just thank them for sending me the scores to all of this so that I can look ahead, because the action is Olympic from you guys. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, I think I could point the camera anywhere and it's going to be a good shot. So I'm hoping everybody will recognize that. But I think it'll just be that you guys are just so amazing. Do you have a clip? Is there something we can listen to from the Devante Hines?
Sure. Yeah, we'd love to play a clip where Devante's talking about a really exciting thing that happened with this project. I mentioned that it started with Hubbard Street Dance Chicago. We recorded it for an album called Fields, and that album was recently nominated for a Grammy Award. So we got to speak to Dev about the Grammy and what it meant for him, because it was his first nomination. So we'd love to play that for you.
Thank you. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, this is my first Grammy nomination, which is really, really incredible and pretty speechless.
Working with Dev Hines on this project has been a real dream for us. Dev is such an inspiring artist, and he works with so many different incredible musicians from so many different genres and backgrounds, and he brings all of that creativity to each of the projects that he does, including this one.
You know, I was like a young black boy in East London carrying a giant cello on my back, like to orchestra. I made a lot of music since then, but the basis of it, the foundation of it has always been in classical. This piece of work was such a beautiful collaboration and one that's actually inspired me a lot since its creation.
All of us in Third Coast Percussion played a role in orchestrating and arranging this music. Dev, in addition to being composer of the music, it also appears as a performer on the album. His beautiful synthesizer sounds are something that really sets the mood.
We're so thrilled to receive this nomination, not only because this project means so much to us, but also because, to us, this album represents a new model for how classical music can be created. Dev, the composer, worked with us, Third Coast Percussion, the ensemble, in a really collaborative way, and this sort of collaboration in the creation of new classical music, to us, really points the way forward for how our art form can continue to evolve.
It's an honor to render music that you guys performed so brilliantly. You know, I feel lucky to have had this opportunity.
Well, that was really wonderful. And again, I'm really looking forward to hearing this incredible piece and this entire program. And I do just want to interject with the fact that you are a 4-time Grammy nominee artists, and that you won a Grammy Award for Works by Steve Reich in 2017. Congratulations, first of all, not just on the nominations. I know, it's beautiful. It's way better than my backdrop here. But how did that feel, you know, you've been together 15 years, your group, is that right?
16, actually.
16 now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible also for any group, I think, to just keep it tight through a pandemic, through everything else, through Grammy Awards, through nominations, you know, really congratulations for that. So looking now as we move into Gemma Peacock's piece, Death Wish. So that sounds like a very dark topic, and in reading that, there is some dark background to it. How did you come across this composer and this work?
So we first learned about Gemma's music through a partnership that we run, the Currents Creative Partnership, which is specifically designed for us to learn about new music creators who are self-defined as at the beginning of their career, or perhaps interested in working with percussion, but they don't have a lot of experience, or it's an open, free call for collaborations. And the piece that Gemma used in the first, when she was at Princeton, she submitted a piece, and it was Death Wish, which is on this program. And we listened to it and we were like, this piece is amazing. We should just play this piece. And so that's when we first learned about Gemma's music. And then we followed her immediately. She has a composer collective called Kinds of Kings.
Right.
And her colleagues in that collective are amazing too. And we just became instant fans. And over the years, we started talking we're actually about to collaborate on a brand new, much larger project with Gemma.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So
when will that take place? When will that premiere?
In the fall, right?
Yeah, that one's going to premiere online with the Library of Congress in October.
Wow, congratulations. That's wonderful.
We're very excited about
Very,
it.
very excited about
And
it.
there's another, New Zealand composer now. She's in Brooklyn, isn't that right? So
Yes.
influences. I love the accents.
Yeah, she's been in New Zealand since the shutdown, which has been I think a good place to be. They've really handled this. I mean, they're an island nation, and they have a strong sense of public health and public well-being, and so they've actually, I think, essentially eradicated the virus on New Zealand. So they're able to. It allows her a lot of freedoms that we don't have right now. But I think she is excited to get back to Brooklyn and the US when she's able to.
One of the amazing things that we never would have even thought of, honestly, before the pandemic, so this is a silver lining, is that we've done virtual workshops with Gemma, her being in New Zealand, us being here, us trying things out in the studio, Gemma saying, oh, could you do it this way? What if we did this? Do you have any sounds that are scratchy, or, a whole bunch of things? And maybe it was just because we were running around touring so much, but we didn't really consider that. And
No.
we've collaborated with composers from overseas before, and we always, the first place we started, we're okay, like, how are we going to get them here? We got to get a plane ticket, blah, blah, blah. Because we really do like to make it a collaborative process when we commission.
Yes, clearly. I'm
And
interested to know if you started doing that through Zoom before the rest of the world did.
We really didn't. And I think to Sean's point, like, this has totally opened our eyes. Of course, being in person in real time in the same space has a value that you can't replace with something online. But when you're talking about someone who lives in New Zealand or Germany or wherever, you kind of say, okay, well, if your plans bring you to the US, we'd love to bring you to Chicago in person. But if that's not possible, or certainly if it's not possible for the 3 to 4 collaborative sessions we like to have with a composer on each work that we're creating, let's do them online now, because not only have our eyes been sort of open to it's possible, but we now have invested in microphones and the equipment necessary to make that really productive, because the sound quality and the visuals of what they're seeing are at a level where it's useful, and not the sort of Zoom masterclass thing that sometimes happens where the audio is not quite right. You're not sure if you're really hearing what the musician's playing, that sort of thing. We've got things locked down a little bit so that it's been really productive, and we plan to continue doing it this way.
Well, the last piece on your program by Jay Lynn, you're playing 5 of 7 movements. Is that correct? I really was very interested. I mean, this is a composer from Indiana, right?
Yeah.
So you maybe had a little bit more of a physically more close contact to be able to do work together. I was also interested reading it that the piece or her music is rooted in footwork style. What does that mean exactly?
So footwork is a style of dance and music that originated in Chicago. It's become now an international phenomenon, but it's like hyper upbeat, like 160 BPM music that is highly iterative, very rhythmic, very percussive. And the style of dance, I can only characterize as a non-dancer, but it's also very physical, very fast, and is what most people refer to as a street dance style. Like it wasn't. It was developed in basements in the south side and west side of Chicago, ciphers, dance-offs, that sort of thing. We came to know Jay Lynn's music, I think originally from a review of an album of hers that we read in Pitchfork, but we had been aware of footwork and just kind of a fan of the style of movement from videos we had seen. And Jay Lynn's music in particular, even her electronic music, relies heavily on sounds that are like easily identifiable as percussion instruments. They're I think in some cases samples and in some cases synthesized.
Mm-hmm.
But we just basically, short way of saying is we listened to her music, we said she would write an awesome piece for Third Coast Percussion. So we reached out to her several years ago, and she's super busy, and we finally found a time when we were able to work together in 2019. And that actually, this is a piece that we played the world premiere of on our last touring show in Washington, D.C. just before the shutdown.
Well, and
But
looking
she
at
did come to our studio a number of times.
right.
Yeah, throughout the process of writing the piece. And Sean, you worked with her to get, I think she sampled like a ton of our instruments. Is that right?
Like thousands. It was over the course of two full days. We were huddled on the floor, hitting resonant bowls and being interrupted by chirping birds outside and stuff. But the thing about Jaylyn that I think I immediately connected with was she was a real musical kindred spirit, and that she's an omnivore. So if you talk to Jaylyn about music, she'll seamlessly transition between hip hop and South Indian classical music and Stravinsky, and her ears are just ginormous, and she's super inspiring to listen to her how she approaches music. And she always says that she likes the weirdos in any genre. It's more important to be experimental and try new things and to hear something unexpected in music, and that's something that I think
Excel in, absolutely.
yeah.
Not the weird part, the experimental, awesome part. Absolutely. I mean, looking at that list from here, bowls filled with water, bird calls, a variety of gongs and tambourines, and metal spring coil, as well as many variations of drum set-like sounds, instruments that are like a hi-hat, but not like a hi-hat. Like this, but not like this. So I'm interested, I'm really excited to be able to actually see that and hear, and whatever you're saying, footwork style and the fast-paced nature of it, that's you guys as well. Every video that I've watched, it's choreography. How much time, if you're working on even one movement of a piece, to be able to have that work like clockwork, especially sometimes with the different meters and changes in instruments?
It's definitely the case that there are logistical considerations in our musical rehearsals that are probably different than most other ensemble types. We do all the stuff that any ensemble does of how are we going to phrase this, how's our balance, who's going to cue this section, things that are, I think, for chamber musicians super familiar. But on top of all that, we're also having conversations about, can I get from here to there in the amount of time? Oh, well, if I can't, can you cover this part for me for a couple bars with this hand while you're doing something with this hand? Or should we add a repeat? Or, like all these little
Which brings a
logistical
question from me, that if you've performed a piece or intend to multiple times, do you ever say, oh, you know what, this time I want to play that part? Or is it just so tight and locked in that you're like, nope?
Yeah, I don't think we
often do that. No.
Yeah.
It's and part of it is that as you said, it's so locked in. Jaylyn's piece, as an example, we started working on it with Jaylyn and designing it and choosing instruments, knowing that it was going to be part of a larger program.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why, one of the more mundane and logistical reasons why we insist on collaborating with composers, because if we just wrote for anything, we get to perform it once, and then we would never logistically be able to do it again. So as you were saying, like all the pathways between changing instruments, and it's so choreographed already, that it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to change parts just because on a whim. People Jaylyn's piece in particular, we have like, if we even change the order that we play the movements, it's kind of screws up our plan of attack. But it is interesting that that we're talking about choreography of the percussion, because this music was then taken by an amazing choreography team, Movement Art is, and it was set. Movement was set on dancers to it.
It was the music, and then the dance was set to the music, not the dance first and the music set to
Right.
that. That's an important difference. Yeah.
And so actually, this might be a good segue for us to play a clip of the resulting collaboration. So this will be Ron Miles and Quentin Robinson moving to choreography by Lil Buck and John Boogs, who are Movement Art is, and a film that was made during the pandemic, during This was all done collaboratively online, so we hadn't physically even met the dancers yet. But this is one movement of Jalen's piece, Perspective.
Let's take a look. Thanks for that clip. That was a really wonderful example of this. And I think it's going to be helpful and very exciting for the audience to hear you talk now and to see these clips in advance of the program on Sunday, which I'll remind everybody is at 3 p.m. on the 25th, live from Nichols Concert Hall. Thank you very much to both of you for being with me today, and I look forward to working with you on Sunday.
Thank you
so much, Fiona.